Some stories are scary because they're loud. Others are scary because they don't make sense. These are moments people still think about years later. Things they saw, heard, or felt that never had an explanation. No jump scares, no monsters in the dark, just ordinary nights where something felt wrong. These are true stories from Reddit, and once you hear them, you might find yourself listening a little more closely to the silence around you. This is Reddit Echoes. Story 1. The Alarm Clock and the Gremlin. About 25 years ago, my now ex-wife and I were caretaking a house together. We'd been there for a few weeks, and nothing about the place was obviously strange. It wasn't old in a dramatic way, it wasn't falling apart, it didn't look haunted. But there was one thing we both felt. Every single time we walked up the stairs from the cellar, there was this overwhelming sensation that something was right behind you. Like the moment you turned off the light, something would grab you. You know that feeling where you know there's nothing there, but your body doesn't believe it? That. We never talked about it much, but I knew she felt it too. In our bedroom, we had an old analog wind-up alarm clock next to the bed, the kind that actually ticks. To set the alarm, you physically move a tiny third hand to the exact time you want to wake up. It's not something you can accidentally change in your sleep. It's not digital. It doesn't glitch. We always set it for 6 in the morning. Always. We didn't touch it daily. Once it was set, it stayed there. One night, in the middle of absolute silence, the alarm went off. Not at 6, at around 2 in the morning. The bells were ringing full volume, right next to my head. I woke up in pure panic. My heart was pounding so hard I couldn't breathe for a second. And in that moment, I saw something small run out of the room. It was fast, low to the ground, maybe 2 feet tall. I remember thinking, that's impossible. I'm still half asleep. Then my ex-wife screamed. She sat straight up in bed and yelled, "Did you just see that thing?" That's when I knew I wasn't imagining it. When we finally calmed down enough to look at the clock, my stomach dropped. The alarm hand wasn't set to 6 anymore. It had been moved from 6 in the morning to 2 a.m. Neither of us had touched it. That was the only night anything like that ever happened. No more alarms, no more sightings, but that feeling on the cellar stairs never went away. To this day, I have no explanation for what we saw or how that clock was changed, and honestly, that might be the part that still scares me the most. Story 2. The Face in the Hallway. When I was a kid, my parents' bedroom and mine were connected by a long hallway. If both doors were open, you could see straight from one room into the other. My parents arranged their beds so they could lie down and look directly into my room at night. They said it made them feel better, knowing they could see me. One night, my dad was lying in bed, staring down the hallway like usual, and that's when he saw it. At the top corner of my bedroom doorframe, upside down, there was a face. Dark, ugly, almost reptile-like. It wasn't moving, it was just watching him. At first, my dad told himself he was imagining things, that his eyes were playing tricks on him in the dark. Then, my mom spoke. She turned to him and quietly asked, "Did you just see that thing in the kids' room?" My dad didn't answer her. He jumped out of bed and sprinted down the hallway. There was nothing there. No one ever saw it again, but the fact that both of them saw it independently without saying a word first, that part still doesn't sit right with me.
Story 3. Okay, fine, I'll go. A couple of years ago, my fiancé was working a job that kept him away for weeks at a time. So most nights it was just me and our dog in the house. For context, my dog absolutely refuses to go into the basement. He's a Great Dane, so stairs shouldn't be a problem for him, but from the day we moved in, he wouldn't take a single step down there. He'd stop at the top, freeze, and back away. One night, he started acting strange. He was sitting at the top of the basement stairs with all the hair on his back raised, staring straight down into the darkness. He was growling, low, constant. I tried to tell myself it was nothing, that maybe he heard a mouse or pipes settling or something normal like that. To calm myself down, I walked over and stood next to him. Mostly for my own nerves, I yelled down the stairs, half joking, half serious, "Whatever you are, just leave us alone. You don't pay enough bills here to be freaking anybody out." I expected silence. Instead, from directly behind me, from a solid wall, I heard a calm, clear voice say, "Okay, fine, I'll go." My dog spun around so fast he yelped and jumped back. Every hair on my body stood up. I didn't sleep at all that night. I called my neighbor's husband and had him come over to check the house. He searched the basement, the crawl space, even the ceiling. He found nothing. I spent the rest of the night with every light on in the house and a baseball bat in my hands, replaying that moment over and over in my head. Not the fear. The part that still gets me is how reasonable it sounded. Like whatever was there wasn't angry or threatening, it just agreed to leave. Story 4. The door that closed. One night, I woke up suddenly to the sound of my bedroom door creaking open. I was still half asleep, but I could see it clearly. The door was moving. In the doorway, there was the outline of someone standing there. Not detailed, just a shape blocking a bit of the hallway light. My heart started racing immediately. I reached over and turned on the bedside lamp. There was no one there, but the door didn't stop moving. It kept slowly closing, inch by inch, like whoever had been standing there had just stepped away. I lay there frozen, staring at it, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. A few seconds later, the motion-sensing fire alarm in the hallway lit up. It only does that when something moves past it. I got out of bed and checked the hallway. There was nobody there. No open windows, no pets, no explanation. I even tried to recreate it later, walking back and forth, opening and closing the door to see if the sensor might trigger by accident. It didn't. Nothing like that ever happened again. But sometimes when I wake up in the middle of the night and see my door perfectly still, I still expect it to start moving on its own. Story 5. The breathing. When I was a kid, my sister died in her sleep. She had a heart defect no one knew about, and one night she just didn't wake up. After that, my dad was never the same. Every night my bedroom door would slowly open. I'd hear this strange, heavy breathing. Not loud, not fast, just close. Then the door would quietly close again. It terrified me. I didn't know what it was. I thought someone was standing there, watching me. I was too scared to move, too scared to call out. This happened over and over. What I didn't understand back then was that my dad was having panic attacks. He'd wake up in the middle of the night, convinced something was wrong, and come check to make sure I was still breathing. He'd hold his breath himself, trying to listen, trying not to wake me. One night, his hands were shaking so badly that he couldn't tell if I had a pulse. In his panic, he tried to feel for it and accidentally jabbed his finger into my ear, then my eye. That's when I finally woke up screaming. That was the night I realized it was him. After that, whenever I heard my door open, I'd just call out, "I'm okay. I love you." I'm grown now. I have kids of my own, and sometimes, even 30 years later, my dad still sends me a text late at night or very early in the morning, just to make sure I'm still okay. That part doesn't scare me anymore. That part just makes my chest hurt a little.
Story 6. The Garbage Bag. When I was 9 years old, I was riding my bike down a rural road near my house. It was quiet, like it always was out there. No traffic, no people. On the side of the road, I noticed a torn garbage bag. It had split open, and inside there was this thick red sludge and a bunch of white sticks. I stopped my bike and stared at it for a while. I didn't really know what I was looking at. I'd never seen real blood before. I'd never seen bones, not even fake ones. So my brain did what it could. I told myself it couldn't be what it looked like. Why would there be blood and bones in a garbage bag on the side of the road? That didn't make sense. I rode home and didn't tell anyone. For the next 2 days, I kept thinking about it. I finally decided that if it was still there, I'd tell a grown-up. When I biked back to the spot, the bag was gone. No scraps, no stains, nothing. Now I'm older. I've seen enough in my life to know exactly what blood looks like, what bones look like. And sometimes, when I think back to that road and that garbage bag, I wish I had told someone right away. Story 7. The Gray Man. A few years ago, I went out for a run on a rural trail near where I lived. It was quiet, the kind of place where you can see for a long distance in every direction. Flat land, open fields, nowhere for anyone to hide. As I was running back to my car, I noticed a man walking toward me in the distance.
At first, nothing about that seemed strange, but the closer I got, the more something felt off. He was an older man, maybe in his 70s. He didn't look homeless, his clothes were clean, but everything about him was gray. His skin, his hair, his eyes, even his swimsuit. He was walking straight down the middle of the trail, and he was smiling. Not a friendly smile, not even an aggressive one, just this wide, full-toothed grin that never changed. Slung over his shoulder was a large black plastic bag. When he was still about 200 meters away, that smile made my stomach turn. I felt uneasy for no clear reason. As we got closer, the feeling got worse. At around 20 feet away, a wave of nausea hit me so hard I almost stopped running. Then the smell reached me. I don't even know how to describe it properly. I want to say it smelled like death, but that's not quite right. It was worse than that. It was so overwhelming that my body reacted before my mind could. I nearly threw up as I passed him, running partly on the grass because he never moved out of the center of the path. I didn't look at him as I went by, but a few seconds later, I turned around. He was gone. Completely gone. The trail was straight, the land was flat, I could see for miles. There was nowhere he could have gone in that amount of time. No trees, no buildings, no paths branching off, just empty trail behind me. I kept running until I reached my car, and I didn't stop shaking until I was safely inside. To this day, I have no explanation for that man, or the smell, or how someone could simply vanish like that. But sometimes, when I think about it, I get the same wave of nausea all over again, like my body remembers something my mind still can't explain. Story 8. The Night Jog. A few years ago, I used to jog at night near where I lived, just outside of Detroit. I know that sounds stupid to some people, but I knew the area well. It was quieter at night, cooler, and there were usually no cars or people around. I never wore headphones. I stayed alert. About 15 minutes into one run, I heard footsteps. Not casual footsteps, not someone jogging, full-on sprinting. They were loud, fast, and coming from straight ahead. I looked up and saw a man dressed entirely in black running directly toward me. He was a block ahead, but closing the distance fast. What stuck with me immediately was his face. He was smiling. Not a friendly smile, not even an aggressive one, just this wide grin like he was enjoying it. In his hand, I could see something metallic catching the streetlight. I froze. I'm in decent shape. I'm tall, but this guy was big and he was fast. I remember thinking that if I turned my back and ran, I wouldn't make it. So I braced myself. I slowed down, squared up, and mentally prepared to fight for my life. When he was less than half a block away, he suddenly turned. He disappeared down an alley I didn't even know was there. Just like that. I stood there for a few seconds, heart pounding, trying to process what had just happened. A few days later, I was watching the news. They showed a photo of a man wanted for murder. Same height, same build, same face. They caught him 4 days later. I never jogged in the city again. And sometimes I think about how close he got and how different my life might have been if that alley hadn't been there.
Story 9. The White Van. When I was 10 years old, my friend Ava and I were walking her dog toward a nearby dog park. It was about 15 minutes from her house, and we'd walked that route plenty of times before. Nothing about it usually felt scary. Halfway there, we noticed a white van driving slowly behind us. At first, we tried to ignore it, but every time we turned a corner, the van turned too. We were kids, but we weren't stupid. We both knew exactly why that felt wrong. So we picked up Ava's dog and started walking faster. Up ahead, we saw an older woman walking her 2 dogs. Without saying a word to each other, Ava and I walked straight up to her and pretended we knew her. We started talking like she was our aunt. She caught on immediately. We told her, quietly, that a van had been following us. She took us seriously. The van stopped about a street away and just sat there. No one got out. We waited with her for a while until we felt safe enough to leave. As soon as Ava and I started walking again, the van began moving too.
That's when we ran. We sprinted all the way back to Ava's house and told her mom everything. She called the police right away. The men in the van were arrested. Both of them were convicted offenders. Even now, thinking back on it, what scares me the most isn't the van. It's how close we were to just brushing it off, and how different things could have been if we had. Story 10. The Cellar Voice. When I was in college, I studied in the UK and lived in a shared house with a group of other American students. The house had a reputation. Everyone talked about the ghost of a girl who supposedly died there years ago. She was said to live in the cellar. I never believed any of it. It felt like one of those stories people tell to make an old house more interesting. The kitchen had only one way in and out. Right next to the entrance was a padlocked door that led down into the cellar. I had the only key. Around Thanksgiving, we were all feeling homesick, so we decided to cook a big meal together. Because the kitchen was small, we had to stagger cooking times. One of my housemates offered to stay up late to start the turkey since she didn't have class the next morning. That night, around 2 a.m., I woke up to my bedroom door rattling. At first, I thought someone had the wrong room. It sounded like someone gently pushing against the door, testing it. Then I heard a woman's voice, soft, scratchy. She kept saying, "Hello, hello," every few seconds. My window was open, and at first I assumed it was a drunk girl walking home from a pub outside. I got out of bed and walked over to close the window. There was no one there. As I turned away, I heard it again, right behind me. "Hello," clear as day. At the same moment, my door rattled once more, and then everything went silent. I've had night terrors before. I know I can hallucinate when I'm sick or overtired, so I convinced myself I'd imagined it and went back to bed. The next morning, around 7, the girl who had stayed up cooking looked exhausted. Before I told anyone what I had experienced, she said, "I had the creepiest night." She told me that at 1:50 a.m. she heard footsteps coming up the cellar stairs. Then the cellar door rattled. At 2:10 a.m. she heard footsteps going back down, and the door rattled again. The times lined up exactly. I never said a word to anyone yet. We never joked about the ghost after that. And I never slept quite as well in that house again.
Story 11. The Woman on the Hill. When I was 9 years old, I used to bike home alone in the evenings. We lived in the countryside, up a small mountain. The road from the village went uphill, then flattened out, then climbed again toward our house. Streetlights only covered the first part of that flat section. After that, it was just darkness. I was afraid of the dark back then, so every night when I reached the end of the streetlights, I'd stop. I'd sit on my bike for a moment, gathering the courage to ride the last stretch home. One evening, as I stood there, I saw someone walking toward me from the top of the hill. It looked like a woman. The moon was out, so I could see her clearly enough. I remember thinking that if I waited until she got closer, I wouldn't feel so scared biking through the dark alone. She kept walking down the hill toward me. Then, halfway down, she stepped into the thin shadow cast by a single tree on the side of the road, and she never came out. I waited. I stared. She didn't reappear on the other side of the tree. She didn't turn around. She was just gone. After a few seconds, panic set in. I turned my bike around and rode back down to the village as fast as I could. I stayed there until my parents came looking for me, confused about why I never made it home. When I told them what I'd seen, they tried to explain it away. They said maybe the woman had stepped into the woods or turned off the road. Years later, my father admitted something he hadn't told me back then. He had seen the same woman. He told me that one night, walking home from work, he saw her walking down that same hill. He looked away for just a second, and when he looked back, she was gone. There were no footsteps in the fresh snow. Later in life, I read a book about local legends. Apparently, for over 100 years, people in that area had reported seeing a woman walking down that hill, always disappearing halfway. I have kids of my own now, and sometimes, just for fun, we'll go on little ghost stakeouts. We bring snacks, sit at the bottom of the hill, and wait. We've never seen her,
but every time I look up that road, part of me still expects someone to step out of the darkness and then vanish right in front of my eyes. Story 12. I'm so cold. My uncle used to work maintenance on the London Underground. Most nights it was routine work, checking tracks, tunnels, equipment. Dark, loud, dirty, but familiar. One night, he was down in a tunnel with 2 other colleagues when they stopped to work on something. While he was focused, he heard a man behind him say his name and ask if he could show him the way out. My uncle assumed it was one of his coworkers. He was so absorbed in what he was doing that he didn't even turn around at first. Then the voice spoke again. I'm so cold. My uncle said the temperature around him dropped instantly. Not gradually, suddenly, like the air had been drained of warmth. That's when he turned around and shined his light on the man. He told me that the moment he saw him, he knew something was wrong. The man was wearing an old, filthy uniform, nothing like what modern workers wore. He was holding a vintage lamp instead of a flashlight, and his face wasn't right. Not threatening, not angry, just empty. The man kept repeating the same thing over and over. I'm so cold. My uncle didn't know what to do. Finally, he said, I don't think you're supposed to be here, mate. Can you see a light anywhere? The man looked straight at him and asked quietly, Can you help me? One of my uncle's colleagues stepped forward, thinking it was someone from another crew messing around. As soon as he got close, the man vanished, just disappeared. All 3 of them ran. They refused to go back into that tunnel. Later on, my uncle heard that other workers had seen the same man over the years, always wearing that old uniform, always holding that lamp, and always saying the same thing, I'm so cold. My uncle is retired now, but sometimes he still talks about that night. He says he doesn't think about it often, but when he does, he can still remember exactly how the air felt when that man spoke. Cold. Every story you just heard ended the same way. No answers, no proof, just memories that never faded. Maybe there was a logical explanation, or maybe there wasn't, because sometimes the scariest part isn't what happened, it's knowing that if it happened once, it could happen again. If you enjoy listening to true Reddit stories like these, more are waiting for you here. This is Reddit Echoes, and tonight, when the house is quiet, pay attention to what you hear next.